Generative artificial intelligence tools are dramatically changing the way we work. For the public sector, Gen AI perhaps has the greatest potential to help public servants streamline their heavy workloads and bring greater efficiencies to their mission operations. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and here to talk about that today is Raj Rana, specialist and customer engineering leader at Google Public Sector. Raj, thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure speaking with you. And I'd like to start by setting the kind of baseline of what is generative AI and what are some of the most immediate needs in the public sector that it can support?
Thanks, Wyatt. Always a pleasure to be here, and this is definitely a topic that is top of mind for our customers as well as for us internally here at Google. So it's a very simple question, but it actually causes quite a bit of confusion. So I'm glad you're asking it. AI has been used throughout the government. If you go to ai.gov, you can see over 700 use cases that have been published by agencies. But specifically to generative AI, it's slightly different, right? So if you look at traditional use cases of AI, it's been more deterministic, right? In the sense of you'll take these models, you'll train it, and it'll provide you with a predictable outcome. So in a pretty pedantic example, think of, I need to see whether this is a cat or a dog. So I will train the model on a series of cats and say this is a cat versus train it on a series of dogs and say this is a dog. And then when I show a picture, it should be able to determine whether this is a cat or a dog. There are certain use cases where that's critically valuable, and frankly, if you think about scenarios of where we want to reduce load on users, that's a great way to do it. Generative AI, however, is slightly different in the sense that generative AI will you consume a large amount of data. It'll create what's called a large language model. That is the model that underlies it. And frankly, what it can do is it actually provides information in a way that is not deterministic, in the sense of you're able to ask it questions in normal language, and it'll provide you with answers based off of the analysis that it's done on the documentation. So the different types of needs and use cases that it supports in the public sector, we really categorize these into four general areas. There's summarizing, so take large amounts of data that exist across across large corpuses of data, and then extract insights from it. So it allows you to summarize large amounts of data. And there's also creation. How do I take, when I'm presented with a blank page, how can I use generative AI as a prompt to get me started, to start to create certain documents, create content for me to then use as the foundation for what I'm developing. There's also discovery, right? So think of this as use case that we shared before around being able to discover data and discover connections that you didn't realize existed before. So instead of querying instead of querying or searching using traditional search parameters, you can use normal English and it'll pull the information out. And then the value across that we even alluded to before around automation, generative AI will also help you with automation, which ultimately helps save time and money.
So thank you for outlining those different use cases. But can I ask you, can you describe in more detail how AI-enabled workspaces could help federal employees actually streamline their work?
Absolutely. So when we shared with your viewers last time, Wyatt, we talked about an AI use case where we created things from scratch. So from our platform perspective, we use what's called Google's Vertex AI. But there's also use cases where AI is integrated into existing tools, for instance, Google's Workspace. And so we call that capability DUET. So let me walk you through an example using DUET AI. So what we have here is an example of a hiring manager. So a hiring manager is now being presented, is now looking to hire for a position for a cloud engineer, which is quite a challenge for quite a challenge to find across the industry writ large, but particularly in the government space. And so what we're going to walk through is an entire use case, walk through a scenario of what it would look like for somebody in the government who is trying to hire a cloud engineer using the capabilities that already exist and how they're augmented by generative AI. So as you see here, we're presented with the inbox of this hiring manager. So Jackie is being requested by her boss, Grace Hopper, to hire an engineer for an open spot in California. Using generative AI, you can type in a brief response, right? A brief prompt here, commit to the hiring plan, and then create and see what does DUET present. So now using this prompt, that's using this information that's by, you can actually change that. You can elaborate it, shorten it, formalize it. Here we've chosen to elaborate, and it takes the feedback, elaborates, and now lets Jackie review. Is this what I want to send? When she's comfortable, she inserts it into the inbox and then sends it out. Now we pivot over here to Google Docs. So inside of Docs, you're presented with perhaps one of the scariest things any creative has to see, which is a blank page. So using the templates capability, she uses a hiring plan to create a template. That she uses that template and populates it now. She takes its first variable, populates it with Cloud Engineer, and this will be important in a second. So when she populates that variable, you see that it actually populates every other place that there's a reference to this variable. We then use DUET AI to prompt for 5 duties. Now, those 5 duties was a pretty generic statement, but leveraging the context inside of the document, it pulls out this information and actually inserts it directly in. So now we pivot over into now we want to add a budget. So as we come down here to Sheets, what we want to do is add again put in a prompt for a hiring budget for a California-based cloud engineer with 5 years of experience. That's the extent of the template we're going to provide, and then goes to DUET and clicks create. DUET will then create a table, and as you see here from this table, you can take this, you can format it just as you normally would. Now you can copy and paste this directly into the budget. But instead of actually copying and pasting it as a static document, you can actually link to the spreadsheet. Now, linking to the spreadsheet is critically important because if you find something that you're not comfortable with, i.e. a base salary in California not being sufficient, you can update that. And now you go inside the document, update it, and it automatically, through that linkage, will update inside of this document. So now we're going to go over to the social media section. So inside of the social media section, what you have here is what Jackie has entered is she said, write me a post including hashtags and recommend an image, because she doesn't know much about social media, but she does know that hashtags are important. And she does know that recommending an image is going to increase her chances of getting engagement. So what she'll do is again, using DUET AI, it's automatically using this, it generates this content that provides an exciting, copy for her to use as the foundation of what she wants to use for her social media post. So we're going to take this information, copy and put it actually into a Google slide. So now Jackie pops this into slides, takes this image prompt that's been provided and actually puts that into DUET AI. So as you see here, there's an image of cloud computing infrastructure that's been requested. DUET will then provide a number of examples. Now, if she doesn't like these examples, she can change this to a variety of different options. She chooses cyberpunk and now creates that same image in the style of cyberpunk. And so when now you see a number of images that come back, and she is going to take this text and actually copy and overwrite this on top of the image, because again, that's guidance that she's received as being very popular, or that increases a greater chance of engagement. So now going back to that original doc, you can actually link that slide so it's actually captured inside of this original document. So now all the work has been done. Let's go back to the goal. She can then ask DUET to, again, write a short goal for this, being very generic by design, because it'll pull the context from this document to understand what is it that's actually been populated, what's been created, and then create a short goal that can then be inserted into this document. Now she's also going to say, in order to make this easier to find and to have more context into the actual document, is to summarize this in 3 sentences. DUET will then do the same thing. It'll capture it, put it in for 3 sentences, capture the 3 sentences and put that actually, allow her to put that into the summary of this document. So she doesn't need to save that separately. She wants to keep that just in the summary itself. So at this point in time, we're almost done. She wants to now close off with Grace by putting together an email for plan approval, and notice that she'll be scheduling a meeting to sync this week. So what DUET does is it leverages the capabilities of Workspace to not only create the documentation and the verbiage, but as which she can then review here and ensure that it covers what she's looking for. But as she scrolls down here and ensures that it includes everything, what you'll notice is that when it gets inserted, it actually includes a template that allows her to be able to email directly from the doc. So she sends it to Grace, puts in the subject of cloud engineer, updates the names, reviews the documents, puts her information in, and then boom, it gets sent. Now to send up the email, she goes into chat, and in chat, she actually sends a note to this helper app called Meet to schedule a meeting with Grace at 3. What it does is it actually go through and identify, okay, 3, this is available at 3. Now I'm going to go in, schedule the meeting, and as you look here inside a calendar, it actually has been set up. It's been created by Meet, and allows Jackie to fully close the loop with Grace in a matter of minutes for something that traditionally has taken weeks to accomplish. So that's an example of how we can use generative AI not separately, but actually integrated into an existing set of applications, and allows us to give our government users superpowers to be able to create things in a much more streamlined and effective and candidly, in some cases, much more creative fashion than they would have been able to do by themselves.
Finally, Raj, what capabilities do agencies actually need to begin integrating these tools that you've been sort of showing here into their mission operations?
Yeah, great question, Wyatt, because at the end of the day, the best way to learn this technology is to use it. Now, there's 2 ways, right? One, I will say is what we discussed last time, right? And that's using, if you want to look at our Vertex AI capabilities, it is actually understanding, being cognizant of what the use cases are that you're looking to take and to drive, and determine how we can incorporate this into an existing capability that you're offering to your citizens or to your internal employees. The other way is by leveraging technologies like DUET AI that is inherent and built into these existing technologies. Frankly, is a way that it's inherent to the actual applications, and so just simply by virtue of using Workspace, and you have access to DUET AI, and this is actually something that is going to expand more broadly as well into different aspects of the platform, whether it's data visualization, whether it's SecOps and security portals. All of these capabilities of making people's lives easier and making our employees' lives easier is critically important to providing a more high quality and a higher quality output of not only of those organizations but of the agency writ large. Now, more generally speaking, the key things that agencies need is the foundation for any technology. You have to start by getting educated. Education is so critically important, and it's particularly important in using a technology like generative AI, where things are so fundamentally different, and they're also rapidly changing. It's really very important to ensure that you have a good technical foundation. There's folks inside of the agencies that have strong technical foundation to understand how and where things are different, because these are the folks that will end up being effectively your first responders, right? Your translators, if you will, the ones that are going to be able to determine and talk to the different organizations and stakeholders as to how this works. Which leads us to number 2. You have to have other stakeholders. This is not a technology conversation. This is not a technology, well, it's not a technology only conversation. Ultimately, where generative AI is different is that this is something that can directly connect into the mission of your agency. And this is one where having having your mission owners at the table and explaining to them what's capable and getting them to think more broadly becomes so critically important. Third is testing and trialing. You've got to find an environment where you can take and start to take some of these ideas and actually put them into proofs of value and proofs of concept. How can we actually take what we've talked about and make it real? And then last but not least, I know we talked about how we need to start to getting these things integrated in, but I will say what's foundation across all of this, in addition to security, is also what we discussed previously, is having a guidebook that allows people to start to collect best practices. What are the best practices so that you can create a positive flywheel of here is how we've been able to deploy this, here is how we've been able to use this. And candidly also incorporates as part of that some of these governance structures. We have to have like we talked at the beginning, trust is so foundational to a government agency that having these guidebooks and as we're learning, having a codified set of rules of how we use this and how we extract benefit is priceless as you're starting to learn.
Well, Raj Rana, thank you so much for sharing your insights on the art of the possible and the practical applications of generative AI in the public sector. So thank you for being with us.
Wyatt, the pleasure is mine. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about generative AI and help your viewers understand how they can take this exciting technology and make it real.